It's a little after 1. I'm sorry, it's close to 1. I guess I got home. Um, I'm not wearing any clothes. I want more. Um, I want more mirror time, but I'm just not wearing clothes. So not right now. I'm a little. I literally just woke up. So I got home from the doctor's appointment a little bit wet. I fell asleep and I slept. So no concert. I think I kind of made a conscious choice not to go when I went to sleep. Um, I didn't really feel like it. It's gonna happen. Um, I guess I lost a few days there, um, and I should get a little bit more work done by the end of the month. Um, I guess I got a little bit extra cash for cheese for the month. Though. Anyways, I'm gonna do a little bit of editing and get something to eat, and I will get some listening done today. I promise you that. Um, this this record will be closed by the end of the day. And how's my ear? Well, as I was walking home, you can imagine I was playing with my ear all the way home. Um, and it really seemed to get a lot better. Right now I woke up and it feels better. I don't know. This is not the kind of thing that I'm going to notice a difference within the course of a few hours. This is the kind of thing that I'm going to notice a difference within the course of a few days. So I'm probably not going to go to the doctor tomorrow. I'm going to wait a few days. I'm going to be heading out that way. Actually, you know what? I'm heading out that way to pick up some cheese. So I might as well go tomorrow. Cheese and Caesar salad. It's the Caesar dressing that I need. So I might as well. See, I kind of wish I went. I kind of wish I went to the show, but at the same time, like, I don't. I'm not sure how fun it would have been to listen to the record, or sorry, listen to it in real time. It was ambient music, right? Um, I think that my state of sobriety would have been really key to enjoying it, and the laws, it's difficult to secure supply. On top of that, the fact that my ear may have just my ear like right at this moment right now, my ear feels so much better. The fact that my ear may have just cleared itself out means I kind of wanted to stay away from that kind of thing for a little bit because the claim is that there's no evidence of long-term brain damage, but some evidence of short-term memory loss. What I'm describing is brain damage. The symptoms I'm having come out of brain damage as a result of a stroke, or brain damage as a result, or I don't want to use the term brain damage as a result of MS, but it's just a lack of, I don't even want to say a lack of blood flow because then it sounds like I'm pushing Zamboni or something, but it's a nerve issue, right? So, and I've been sober for almost a month, so I mean not like I put any um, meaning into that. I don't have any. I don't think sobriety is so great, and I don't have issues with um, addiction. I don't. I kind of felt I did with cigarettes, but I think the truth is that I just didn't want to quit smoking, and when I did want to quit smoking, I got off them pretty quick. Um, but then again, I am bumping smokes all the time, so I don't know. I know that my ear is a lot better, and I want to monitor that. this isn't the first time that the year has been better, right? For a little while. If if pulling something out of my ear made a big difference, what I felt walking home was it almost felt like I shouldn't get all of it out. I felt like there was still something in there. Maybe my body has to like expel it closer to the side or something. I don't know. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna keep my appointment in December, and I'm gonna I'll wait until next week anyways, because next week I'm going down to get my hearing test. I'll wait till next week before I schedule. Yeah, that's the plan. Ugh. So woke up Yanni. Yanni's actually not that far from what the. It's a little bit darker. I'm just. Again, this is like if it was across the street, then I would have went for sure. But can I really justify going all the way down there to sit in what is essentially a glorified gym and listen to a bunch of low pedals when I'm low on cash and know I'm going to be low on cash probably permanently? So there's your incentive system, right? Save your money, don't go to the show. No. So the Supreme Court in the States just upheld affirmative action. Affirmative action is actually constitutionally protected in Canada, but it's our Constitution has something like an equal amendment, right? That says that bans any sort of discrimination on any sort of specified grounds and analogous grounds to the ones that are specified, right? Except in situations that are designed to be ameliorative, right? So you can't discriminate on race except when it's to help someone based on race. That's affirmative action and it's in our Constitution. Doesn't really apply to Africans. It's more like for Indigenous people here. That's the big thing. And is it necessary for Indigenous people here? Yeah, it is. If we conclude it's working, right? So, like, for us, the question is not, like, it's written right into our Constitution that we ban discrimination except for ameliorative purposes. But note that we're kind of conceding the point with the language, right? We're acknowledging, like, our Constitution implicitly acknowledges that affirmative action is discriminatory, but it allows it constitutionally in ameliorative purposes. And in fact, that's not far from my perspective. Who wrote that? It was Poppy Trudeau, the current Prime Minister's father. I mean, I don't know who wrote exactly what parts of it, but he was the primary framer. He and some staffers and some cabinet ministers around him. But what do I think about this? Well, I don't like affirmative action either, frankly. And I say either because the comment that I'm reacting to doesn't really support it, and a lot of the comments on the video are very opposed to it. Again, this is like the Young Turks. It's just like a stream of right-wing hate. You gotta wonder. Sometimes I wonder if he's like doing some kind of like reverse psychology programming or something. It seems kind of weird sometimes. It has an absolutely valid. Well, actually, let's go watch my video on the psychologists. I got some red flags coming from that site. I'm not throwing any accusations at or anything. It's just something seems not right. But I mean, affirmative action has an absolutely valid critique from the left, and it does. I think it's a kind of a short-term necessity. I've made both arguments about whether this necessity has run its course, and don't really have a strict opinion on it. I would love to wake up one day and say we don't need affirmative action anymore, but what is clear is that this day is upon us. What is less clear is if we've made progress or not, and whether this is really the right approach. If we cannot expect progress to come from it, I think the approach should be abandoned and we should try something else. So does that mean I'm opposed to the Canadian Constitution? Not really, because the Canadian Constitution doesn't put down any specific rules or any specific quotas. It just says that discrimination is not allowed except, and remember, the Constitution works at a government level, right? There's a human rights code and it's more or less the same, but it's human rights codes are enforceable by fine, right? It's not like, we can't tell people what to think, right? We can just, tell them that there's penalties, if you're going to be an asshole, right? Our Constitution, there's nothing in our Constitution that would prevent, like, let's say 100 years from now, Canada is a majority Asian country, and white people are an oppressed minority. It's well, look at the demographic trends, right? It's not so crazy. I think that the demographics in the States suggest that the white population might be around 30% in 100 years, or less than that, which is roughly, I think, what the black population is now. Something close to it. A flipperoo. Numbers don't imply power, right? Just because the numbers flip around doesn't mean the power is going to, but still, it's not outside the realm of possibility, anyways. So let's say that happens, right? 100 years from now, it's country's overrun by Chinese, and whites are, we're building light rail across the country. We're building bullet train tracks across the country. All right. Our Constitution doesn't specify anything about skin color one way or the other. If the situation flips so that white people are the minority, then affirmative action for white people would be constitutionally allowed if it's for ameliorative purposes, right? Well, what our Constitution does is it puts down a set of rules, and it says if it's applicable, right? And then the judge has to rule on it. The judge has to rule, okay, acknowledging that this is discriminatory, is it ameliorative? If it's ameliorative, then it's okay. If it's not, then it's discriminatory, right? And that is the question that you need to ask on a case-by-case basis, right? So not only am I not opposed to the Constitution, that's exactly what I'm saying, right? So as a social libertarian, I simply can't agree that this is ideal or an acceptable structural concession of the way society ought to operate. I think it's best to break this down into three options. One is the status quo into perpetuity, and a society is always permanently racist. Racism is normal, and we need permanent structural means to balance it out. That would mean we should have affirmative action forever. I don't think so. I reject that in the most forceful terms possible. So at some point we gotta get rid of this, right? I don't mean get rid of this in the abstract. We should, withhold the option to go back to it, but as enforceable rules, we'll have to get rid of it eventually, right? Second option is that society is temporarily racist and affirmative action is helping us make things better. We're not at the point where we can get rid of it yet, but we're seeing some progress and we should stick with it a little longer, so long as we keep in mind that the end goal of eventually abolishing it is. I can live with that if the evidence upholds it, right? So if you look at the evidence and you're like, we still got a long ways to go, but look, we can point to this. It's demonstrably better. The number of, the unemployment rate amongst blacks has gone down. Of course, it hasn't actually, right? But if you could point to that, if you had solid data that showed it was effective, it was working, great. We're not there yet. I don't really like it as a policy, but it's working. Let it run its course, and then we can get rid of it when it's done, right? The third option is simpler. Is that okay? Society is temporarily racist. Racism isn't inherent in people. It's not human nature, okay? But this affirmative action thing is not helping us. It's not making things better. In fact, there's been no appreciable change in social attitudes or hiring practices. Employers simply see it as a burden, try to circumvent the law as much as possible, and ultimately want to go back to openly racist hiring policies. And I unfortunately think that that's probably a lot closer to the truth of it. Well, then we need to look at the situation more carefully and be like, well, we put our ideals on hold. We compromised because we thought that this approach would help. It's not helping. So why are we holding to this thing that doesn't work? Maybe we need to try something else. Again, I think the first option is wrong. It's just an ideological argument. I don't accept that racism is normal or inevitable, so I refuse to accept the perpetual necessity of a policy that is only even worth discussing because it is ameliorative. Despite liking the fact that the way the Constitution is worded, because you can look at it on a face-by-face basis, and you will acknowledge that, even if it is ameliorative, then it's still discrimination, but it might be acceptable discrimination because it's ameliorative. Discrimination is not necessarily wrong. Discrimination can be okay if it's overturning a balance of power. But you need to check on a case-by-case basis that it really is overturning that balance of power. I'm a social libertarian, right? I'm sorry. I don't like it. If it's working, great. It's a necessary evil, but it's still evil, right? So it's the other two options that I'm torn, right? I want to believe the second option because I want to believe things are getting better. I just want to believe, right? But is that going to be a thing whenever I say I want to believe? But I mean, I know that the third option is actually closer to what the data says, right? Which is not to concede any ground to the fuckers, other than to point out that the fuckers are hard-headed fuckers. We tried to force them to not be fuckers, and they're still fuckers. The court made a choice here. I'm not convinced that the evidence upholds it. The thing is, like, where's the person with a better idea? Let us look. Let us set our heads to the hillsides and look in the distance for the individual with the better idea. And always see our tumbleweeds, right? Normally when you put a policy in place, it comes with an assessment period at the end of it. What have the effects been? Has this policy been effective? If so, what have we learned that can improve it? If not, what ideas? What are other ideas that might? If not, what other ideas exist that might work better? That's what the debate should be at this point, right? It's what? 45 years later. But the issue is stuck at the political phase because opponents never really accepted it, so advocates never really stopped fighting for it. It's just this perpetual culture war, right? And it serves the political masters because, instead of fighting, the bastards, the bankers, they're fighting over this, right? Like, this is a class issue, and it should, and they've got you fighting over race, right? So this is exactly what they want, right? We're decades into it now. It's really time to stop and evaluate. And listen, I say this with no great happiness. But I'm sorry, I think that a really careful analysis of the data is going to show that affirmative action has not helped the groups it was meant to help. And so, besides the ideological debates about it, we need to ask what else can we do to help the groups that need help, because this isn't helping. Right? Bernie Sanders said Friday he will likely vote for Hillary Clinton for president in November, the strongest expression of support yet from the Vermont senator, but he left the door open that he could change his mind. They're asking him if he'll vote for her. As that's up for debate. The guy's a Democrat. What do you think who's he going to vote for? It's becoming farce, right? I mean, they just can't deal with the lack of expectation. Of expectation. You know, it's they keep fishing for it, and he just it's the insolence, right? They can't deal with it. They're so used to these hierarchical party, structures that when somebody refuses to, fall into this reconstructed hierarchy, and into this chain of command, and that's broadly true in the United States. That's even true for the, he's running for commander in chief. That's a very hierarchical position, right? I know that he's not running for commander in chief. He's running for, social service guy in chief. I said from the start of this that he should have been focusing on the House, and he is focusing on the House. But what Bernie Sanders really wants is to be the Speaker of the House. It's just that you're not directly elected to the Speaker of the House. Right? He wants to run for Prime Minister. Not President. Right? Wait, this just in. Bernie Sanders has confirmed that he would, in fact, brake if he saw Clinton crossing the street. Well, that's something anyways. Back to you, Bob. In YouTube's latest demonstration of illiteracy and idiocy, it seems to have removed the ability to break over paragraphs in comments. So you just get a blob. One single blob. Unshapeable. Unsculptable. Pure blob. Would you like to know my response? I will gratuitously utilize the reply feature by posting one paragraph per comment. The problem here is the Twitter mentality. If I could go back in time and kill the fucking idiot, they came up with a character limit. I don't know if it's the I don't know if it's my browser, but I'm going to have to go through all of my comments and break them up. That's the only rational response to this. Besides the laugh. It was a good laugh, huh? Maybe I should do that more often.